Hi guys, welcome back to the Forgetful Scholar, and today we're gonna chat about books. 2 books. I read 2 books this week. Okay, sorry. I'm not gonna say I'm getting over the book slump, because every time I say I'm getting over the book slump, I get right back into the book slump. But let's just say this week made me very hopeful, okay? So, first book I'm gonna talk about this week is Wonton Terror, a Noodle Shop Mystery by Vivien, and this is book 4 of the series. And she got there eventually. So this is a cozy mystery centered around a noodle shop in Cleveland, I believe. And this starts off for a series where someone always gets murdered in their little Asian community. This one definitely was impressive. So they're at a night market, basically, and there cues the dog ripping at the carpet. Anyway, they're at a night market selling, food cart. Try to drum up some more business. Lana, who is the main character, she is now the manager of her family's noodle shop, and she's finding she really likes it. She really enjoys it, right? Which is a complete surprise to her. She's there with Peter, who's the cook, and in the first book was the suspect of the murderer, but that's how she got into this. She's like, Peter wouldn't have done it, and she was right. Peter didn't do it. So that's how she became kind of a Nancy Drew. So this food truck explodes. That's how this starts. And I was like, oh, I am here for the chaos. Let's go. So I think this book did a really good job of laying down obvious clues of red flags when it comes to the victim of the food truck explosion. Because even within a first 3 or 4 paragraphs of him being not really in the scene, but her watching what's going on, I was like, oh, red flag, red flag. Because basically she runs into these 2 women that used to be her mom's friends, and she remembers when she was little, but they haven't been around for a while. And Sandra's husband, who runs the food truck, and he's screaming at her to get back. They have a lot to do. When Lana hugs her, Sandra flinches as she says, oh, she just wrenched her back. And already she, she's in a DV situation. You know what I mean? Already, and I thought that was really clever how the author kind of put those tiny little clues that Lana figures out much later in the book. And because of that, I kind of had a suspicion who the murderer was from the beginning. But I will say this book, the red herring, was pretty good. I was like, oh, it's possible too. I was like, it is possible this guy did this as well. Because the other suspect she thinks it is Sandra's brother. You know what I mean? And he's ex-military, all this kind of stuff that kind of ticks off the box. Super shady dude. He acts like he's super shady. He has all this to hide when really he was just being super shady to be super shady. He's, you know what I mean? There's nothing to him. Spoiler, nothing to him. But the murder, I was like, oh, it's totally this person. It's totally this person. And she got there eventually, which, good for her, because the other couple books, the murder was never who she thinks it was. She finds out who the murderer is when they confront her, because they think they figured it, because the murderer thinks Lana figured it out, but she never does. But this book, she does. She's still in a shitty situation when the light bulb goes out, because she's in the room with the murderer, and then she's like, well, no, she confronts the murderer, and I was like, you were somewhere safe, and then you went to the second location to confront the murderer by yourself. Lana, how many times? This is the 4th time you've been in this situation. You know what I mean? And I think her and Detective Adam Trudeau's relationship is super cute. I like that they're finally in a committed relationship, and his moments in this book were just sweet, cuddly, fluffy moments, and I like that. you know, reading so many romance novels, sometimes you get a little bogged down by all the drama of the romance. And although I like that normally, it is fun sometimes to switch it up and read something that, you know, isn't. It's just fluff when it comes to the romance. But she keeps getting hit on, girl. Like, you go. Like, just everywhere she goes. I'm like, damn, good for you. I did also like, because the secondary plot, more like family stressors, is that her aunt is coming to visit her mother's older sister. And Lana and her older sister are really stressed out because their aunt stresses their mom out, and always huge family fight, right? And this year, the grandmother came to live with their mother, so this adds kind of more stress. And they love their aunt, but the aunt's relationship with their mom is complicated, right? And so I liked how Lana and her sister kind of put a ceasefire, because they're in the other 3 books, they were always snipping at each other. And it didn't come off as banter. They were like snipping at each other, right? In this book, when they did snip, it kind of felt more teasing. Like, it was nice to see a different side of their relationship, because sibling relationships are complicated, you know what I mean? So it was nice to see that they're not always at each other's throats. They could joke around, they could tease each other, they have each other's back. You know, and you see more in this book where Lana's older sister comes from. Because in the other books, she kind of, why are you getting involved with all, you know, kind of nags at her about her involvement in the case. And while you're reading, you're like, hey man, Lana's trying to find out the truth. But in this one, you kind of get like, you know, she's afraid for her little sister. Because Lana asks her a question. She's like, hey, because she's trying to figure out if someone she interviewed is telling the truth. And she's like, hey, if I was horribly murdered, would you want to know? Or would you be like, nah, I'd rather not know the truth? And her sister like looks at her for a good minute. And I like how this scene is written, because you could almost, I pictured in my mind like a play. Like I was watching on TV. It was well written, you know, I fell into it. And she's like, you know, she makes a joke about eternal vengeance, sue their ass, buy everyone a Mercedes. You know, just a joke. But you could see, you know, where the older sister's nagging comes from. Like, oh yeah, she's actually worried about Lana. So I liked that. I liked that a lot. I gave this book 3 stars because, you know, the mystery wasn't shock, awe, you know, but everything was really cute. I really enjoyed it. And there's something about this writing that I fall right into. You know, there's something about it. And these characters, like, I know these characters, you know. I grew up in a very ethnically diverse area. So, like, I know these characters. And some of the supporting cast that is usually in these books, they remind me of family members. Obviously, my family's not Asian. My family is Hispanic. But despite the cultural differences, like, a lot of the personality traits are like, oh, that's so my mom. Oh my god, that's so this aunt. Oh, I could totally see Sophia my older sister doing this. Could totally see, you know what I mean? Like, I there's something universal about these characters that I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed reading it. It really was a lot of fun, which was good, because the second book, whew, let me just say, whew. But this one, liked it. Want to continue with the series. Let's see if I could find them. Okay, so the second book. Okay, so I've read this one before when I was in high school. And this was one of, like, 1,005 years ago, right? And this was one of the, maybe, like, the 3rd or 4th romance novel I ever read. And I thought it was weird back then, right? So I never revisited it. Until, like, I put the picture of the step back up last week on my Instagram. I was like, you know, let me revisit it, because it can't be as weird as I thought it was. Wrong, it is as weird as I remember. So, okay, so this is a historical, contemporary, sci-fi, something, straight romance novel by Johanna Lindsey called Until Forever. It's kind of shiny cover, so let's see. Okay, very shiny, and then bam, beautiful step back. Now, why is there a white triangle? Well, that, my friends, I believe is trying to symbolize time travel. And why is that sword here? Well, let's get into that, shall we? Now, I want you to look at this sword really closely. Beautiful, beautiful step back. Love the art style. This sword, right? Does this sword scream Norse Viking to you? Because it doesn't to me. It's like a fantasy cartoon. He-Man. He-Man. That's what this sword makes me think of. He-Man. The power of Grayskull. That's what driving me nuts. Okay. So there we go. Also, like that handle, that is just ridiculous. that is so impractical. Like that handle you would not be able to hold on during a skirmish and you would be killed. So that's not very practical. Okay. Now, why is this contemporary historical sci-fi? Okay. So this is Jocelyn. Professor Jocelyn, thank you. I think her last name's White. I think. Now, she has a 10-year professorship at some unnamed college. I even went back into the book to see if I could find out where the college was. No. And in my notes, no name of the college. I read this about 5 days ago, and I barely remember anything. That's how kind of forgettable the good parts of this book are, but the weird ass parts, I remember those. So, and she's in her like late 20s, early 30s-ish. So good for her for the 10-year professorship. She's an archaeologist of just medieval history. And I'm like, what? I mean, wait, what? And her hobby is weapons. Not ancient weapons, not medieval weapons. Just weapons. So I'm like, does she have like a cache of guns or something? No. That would have been actually kind of fun, I think, maybe a little bit. In one of these scenes, if she like had like, well, sorry, I got very American for a second. Okay, let me pull this back. So this is a 2-star. And the reason it's a 2-star, because I legitimately, like, because I don't hate read, right? If I read a book and I hate it, I get grumpy. I get grumpy pants. This book was so ridiculous that the bad parts made me laugh, right? And the thing is, I like Jocelyn. I like Thorn. That's the Viking's name. Thorn is grumpy with a heart of gold. You guys know I love that shit, right? Jocelyn isn't so bad. Like, she's intelligent. She's not naive. She holds on to a grudge, which I love to see in romance novels, because a lot of times in romance novels, the women are so idealized and so perfect. So it's nice to see that a bitch holds a grudge. You know what I mean? I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me explain. And this is like the first unbelievable things in my mind that happens in a time traveling book. This is one of the unbelievable things that like my brain just wouldn't let go. In her college that is still unnamed, the dean gently broke the news that her ex was also getting a 10-yearship. In what fucking universe would a boss who is not a friend or anything, just a boss, gently break it to you that your ex that you have been apart from for like almost 5 years, I think, got a job at the college? Like, who gives a shit? They're your boss. They're not gonna hold your hand. Like, I was like, that's bullshit. And I was like, whoa, we're not even past page 2. So, see, she teaches medieval history. Okay, I could see, since she's a professor, that's her course that she teaches, like, medieval history. And I'm like, is it 101? Is it like, what do you mean, right? But no, that's what her archaeology thing is. I was like, no. Usually, you know, from being in the world and talking to people, archaeologists, like doctors, tend to have a specialty, you know? Maybe once in a while you have like a genius who is like an Egyptologist, and that boggles my mind because they're experts on Egypt and Egypt's history and all of that. And it's amazing because that is freaking like so like thousands of years of history and they just know it, right? But archaeologists tend to Like medieval weapons is their specialty. You know what I mean? They could teach medieval history, but medieval weapons is their focus. Or medieval textiles, or medieval agriculture, medieval architecture, medieval art, medieval literature. You know what I mean? Like there's so much, especially you can't be like medieval history, I'm an expert on all of it. No, boo, no. That's nuts. And in this book, you do not come off that smart. You know what I mean? Like you are not that smart. No. Why not just say she's an expert on medieval weapons? Okay, that's still a huge thing, but it'll feed into the plot. You know why? Because time travel, and the author didn't want to deal with her not knowing what the fuck to do when they go to medieval times. Tournament and show. No, medieval times. Medieval time period. Even though she speaks English, American English, and she gets transported to the medieval era, and you think she can understand what people are talking about? You think people can understand her? No, that's not how that works. No, not at all. She wouldn't have been able to communicate. And like, maybe if she was an expert on medieval languages, cool. You know what I mean? But she just like, she knows how to do this. All like, how? How are you an expert on every part of medieval history? That is not possible. You are not that smart because you show me in this book you are not that smart. So no. So that was crazy, right? Anyway, medieval history, whatever. Her hobby are swords, and she's been trying to get her hands on this one sword that's like a legend, and it's called Blood Drinker's Curse. And I'm like, and it's a Norwegian Viking sword, and from the medieval era. And I'm like, you're telling me that the Scandinavian name perfectly translates to Blood Drinker's Curse. Okay, whatever. And then they like describe the sword exactly how the artist depicted it here, which is beautiful art, by the way. The He-Man sword. And I'm like, see, that to me that's not a medieval Norse Viking sword. And if I could find, or maybe copy one of the pictures from one of my reference books up there, I'll put it in here. Bam. See, that's more Viking swords. And there's like, yes, their pommels can be very ornate, but like having a jewel in the middle of the pommel, that would weaken the whole thing. Like it just doesn't. Anyway, moving on from that, apparently no woman can own Blood Drinker's Curse. And she's like, yeah, screw that, which I like. Also, she holds a grudge. She hates that her ex is getting a tenureship in our college. And I like that she still hates her ex. Love it. I love that she held on to her grudge. You know what I mean? Yeah. Be imperfect. I like that, Rosalind. Good for you. Also, I just love the name Rosalind. So that, anyway. She gets the sword. So this book is kind of like a fairy tale kind of retelling, I guess. Parts of it remind me of Beauty and the Beast. Parts of it remind me of Aladdin. So she gets the sword. And out pops Thorn, the barbarian Viking, like a gin from a bottle. And I'm like, gin from a lamp. And I'm like, what? And apparently he has been cursed by a witch because of... Oh fuck, what was he cursed for? That's not good that I don't even remember what he was cursed for. Because he was... In my notes, I literally wrote under reason for curse. What? What the fuck? You gotta be kidding me. Fuck you, book. So... Great note-taking, me. Shit. It's like arrogance. Or because he didn't love the witch or something. And I'm like... Lame. Because, like... You were a witch, and apparently a really powerful one, right? Because she cursed this guy to eternal youth, and this sword like time travels and all this shit, right? And he is bound, if a woman owns the sword, he's basically their slave. Like, it's a powerful curse, right? And this guy is like a warrior Viking from the medieval era, right? Like, he's gone on raids. Vikings of that time, I'm not shaming, I'm not whatever, but that's just history. They went on raids, they plundered villages, mostly coastal villages, for goods, slaves, things like that, right? So you're telling me this witch, who never shows up, don't know her name, never shows up. That's what kind of reminded me of Beauty and the Beast. Like that witch out of nowhere just cursed him. Shows up out of arrogance. I was like, not because he like killed your sister or razed your village to the ground. Nothing like kind of really just because like he spurned you. Like way to put the bar super fucking low. Like so lame. Your ultimate power. Oh, you hurt my feelings. Fuck you. Like what is that? Yeah, you could have had a scene like a prelude where he's like plundering a village and like the witch comes back from the forest communing with the animals, or arts and crafts day. I don't know what medieval witches do. And they come back and they find the people they love killed, you know? Like, you're just gonna be like, that would have been an awesome scene. And then like, boom, he's cursed. And then we kind of have a present of him being like a bloodthirsty kind of Viking, but then through his punishment and knowing Rosalind, like he becomes the lovable guy that I actually do like Thorn in this book, by the way, but the lovable guy that, you know, we're root for. You know what I mean? I think that could have added a lot. This was came out in 1995, so deal with the spoilers. So I was like, man, that's kind of lame. And then we don't get to see the witch. She never shows up for like a boss battle, nothing. And like, so I'm assuming she died of old age, right? So I'm like, you curse this guy for eternal youth, right? For all eternity. And you didn't give you some of that for yourself? Like, really? Really? I was like, what the hell? Like, what the hell? That sucks. You know, that's kind of lame. That freaking sucks. And then he, like, okay. I like the pacing of it in the disbelief of what's happening to her. I like that. I think that was well paced. Because going on too long, you're like, oh, shut the fuck up, girl. This is happening. It's a book. Deal with it. Too short, you're like, man, that was a really fast turnaround. You're terrifying and then you want to jump on that D. That's kind of fast. So I like the pacing of it, right? This is probably going to be a longer one than usual because I have a lot to say. I like that. The fact that she could just seamlessly adjust to medieval life, fuck you. And the fact that, like, this dude, this sword, I guess, or the dude in the sword can time travel, right? He takes her back to the medieval era. You were an archaeologist. Time travel. What? This is what... You were in charge. I mean, granted, she doesn't know that in the beginning, but later she finds out, and it's like, you don't want to, you're an archaeologist. You don't want to go to the fall of Rome. You know, I would love to see if Nero really played his little fiddle while Rome burned. Leonardo da Vinci. I wouldn't be able to talk to Leonardo da Vinci because I don't know Italian, let alone Renaissance Italian, but like, if I came over a time-traveling sword, first of all, I probably think I finally lost what little marbles I had. But second of all, like, I would just want to go stare at Leonardo da Vinci for a couple minutes. The greatest mind in history. Seriously? No? Okay. Like, I'm like, what? You're an archaeologist. You're obsessed with history. There's nothing you want to see. You know? You're just only thinking about that D. Like, come on, girl. Like, you had a whole... Like, you were a real, like, a full person before this. Why is it, like, all of a sudden this hot guy and nothing else matters? Like, that bothers me a lot, right? Because to be so young, to have a doctorate, and then a tenure as an archaeologist, that is some dedication. You know what I mean? That is some obsession. And the fact that, like, no, it kind of goes away. It's just there because she knows how to do stuff. No. I do not accept that. And that's already on the assumption that everything we believe about the medieval era, down to the tiniest minute detail of, like, preparing food, is correct. We don't know that for sure. So, like, that's ridiculous. I know it's a book. I'm getting really heated about this. My God. Arrgh. So, where was I? Okay. And then, okay, blah, blah, blah. They fall in love. He learns to care about someone else. So the curse is... about to break, super lame, and she's like, she frees him from, kind of, this is what reminds me of Aladdin, where like he used his last wish to set Genie free, even though it hurt his chances with Jasmine and everything like that. She sets him free, even though she knows they can't be together. You know what I mean? So I like that she was willing to sacrifice her happiness for him, showed how the depths of her love. I like that, right? And then, because this whole time this other professor is supposed to show up where she is to also study the sword, right? And then at the epilogue, super lame, but at the epilogue, Professor Thorn shows up. I don't even remember his last name. And it's like the guy, but it doesn't really explain anything else. Like, is he reincarnated? Does he have memories of her? Did he have like a normal life, like an average life, and then like 16, all these memories of her came back? Or did the curse put him here as himself with all documentation? Because he's a professor and a doctor in archaeology, so the curse like give him birth certificate, put him there, put all the knowledge of a doctorate in his head. Did the curse pay for his schooling? Did the curse pay his student loans? I want to know. So I can get it, Kurt. No, because like, what the fuck? I mean, a doctor in America, that's some money. Even in the 90s, that's some money. So I'm like, how? And they don't really explain it, because it's just like he opens the door, there's Thorn, but he's the fellow doctor. Open the door, that's Thorn, it's the fellow doctor she's been waiting for, end of book. And I'm like, but what? But wait, but where? Like, seriously, did the curse pay his student loans? I really want to know that. Like that. That's the only thing I care about right now. That I thought of it. It's the only thing I care about right now. Jeez. Okay. So that book is crazy. But I did enjoy myself reading it. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't horrible that I got mad at it. It was just so ridiculous. The time traveling and the sort of generalization of archaeology. Like, it's just... I just wonder if there was any research into the actual field of archaeology, into academia that, like, went into it. It doesn't really feel like it. And yes, it was written and published in the 90s, but academia doesn't change. And if it does, it certainly doesn't change that quickly. Takes like, I don't even know. Whatever. I'm super salty now that like a curse paid for this dude's student loans. So that's where my head is right now. So that's what's going on. So I'm gonna go before I let even more crazy out. So I don't want to, but everybody get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.